What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the highly anticipated 01 Studio Cell Unicron ZV-02 Core Star Lord of Chaos, also known as the Zeta Toys or Zeta Toys Unicron. I have been waiting for this figure ever since it was announced last year, around about the same time as the HasLab Unicron was announced, and when it was rumoured that this design had actually been scrapped, I was absolutely distraught, as in my personal opinion this actually looks as if though it's better than the upcoming HasLab Unicron, which I have backed, but upon handling this figure, I highly regret doing so. So, if you are in the market for picking this figure up, and the head and the planetary rings are included, you can in fact purchase this right now over at Shozy Store, and for that I will leave a link down in the description box below. Now I'm sure you'll be able to tell just by this opening shot that this figure is absolutely huge. He doesn't even fit into my review station without cutting off as part of the planetary ring at the back. However, I will do my best to showcase this figure in as full as I possibly can do. So you can see here I do have one of the attachments that this figure comes with, that being one of the space vacuums, which is what Unicron actually uses in order to devour planets with, so that is a great inclusion. And just detaching that, you can see that it does come in two separate pieces. So we have the actual jaw section of Unicron here, and you can see the detail and the paintwork is awesome. And this piece here does clip onto 4 tabs. You can see the 4 posts here that it will in fact peg into on this, so that is super cool. But this is just an alternate mouthpiece in order for you to get the sealed mouth, so that it doesn't look as if though he's got a huge gaping hole, and so that you don't reveal the actual head of Unicron, which I'll showcase in just a second. And you can see here that this also has 4 tabs for you to actually peg on the space vacuum. Now this does also come with a second set of these pieces, and for now I am currently using that as the display base for this figure. You can see here that I think it acts fantastically as a display base, and I'm so glad that Studio Cell / Zeta Toys did include this. This looks awesome and really does just set this figure apart on the shelf. Actually bringing in Unicron for a closer look, you can see this is the actual real mouth of the figure, and when you do open it you can see that it is slightly unsightly, hence why they did include that additional component, as when you open it, it is simply just Unicron's head folded up inside there. So if you do use the additional piece and actually attach this, of course this whole section here is filled out, and in my opinion looks a lot better. But that is definitely a display option that you can do, and in order to turn off the LED function, you simply just press this button and the LED function will turn off. So just giving you a quick look at how the open mouth looks on this figure, you can see that even this I think looks super cool. I do believe the HasLab version is going to have an almost automated Mecha Live sort of gimmick, so that you just twist this and the teeth will open, which looks super cool. But setting gimmicks off to the side, I think that this one works a lot better, and then just collapsing all these in, you can see that you have the completed planet look, and this looks so cool. These mandible sections here are articulated, so you can hinge these in to make it look as if though Unicron is devouring the planets, or you can have them extended to make it look as if though he's about to approach a planet, which I think looks super cool. And these are on ball joints, so are fully articulated, and they also do have a second joint here for you to actually hinge the pointier section of the mandible. However, that is mainly due to Unicron's transformation. You can see throughout this figure he is completely loaded with different spikes, which are supposed to simulate towers of the planet, and I think that these do a really nice job. These do come separate from the figure, so you will have to peg these on yourselves. There are no instructions on how they are supposed to peg on, so some of them may be incorrect. However, judging from their locking mechanisms, I do think that I've done quite a good job. And just giving you a full 360 rotation, you can see that this is a completed sphere, something which Hasbro kept going on and on about with their Unicron, but honestly this one, you can see that this is a completed sphere, and I think they have done a tremendous job. All of the panels are sculpted incredibly, they're painted really nicely, and the plastic that they've used I think is also really nicely done. You can see here the planetary rings that I spoke about earlier on. These do come as a separate piece, a separate package, along with Unicron's head, and you can see all of the spikes on these, which I think looks super cool. They do actually come in 2 pieces, so I'll show you how you can detach those in just a second. But also included with this figure are a few interchangeable blue pieces. Now I believe that these are probably so that you can get a more coherent planet mode, so that the whole planet looks more or less blue, as in robot mode the pieces that these swap out with are orange, which looks more G1 accurate for Unicron's robot mode. So I think if you want a more color cohesive planet mode, then I would recommend swapping these pieces out, but it is a lot of effort, as you have to pull off all of the spike tower pieces and then peg them onto here. So for this review I will only be showcasing you the pieces that actually come already installed on the figure. Coming in now for a more up close and personal look at the character, you can see here that all of the towers and the sculpted in panel detailing I think has been done so well on this Studio Cell Unicron. you can see that these are so awesome. All of the details, these spikes are actually incredibly firm plastic, so definitely be cautious of actually handling this figure. As you can see, I have got a few scuffs and scrapes from transforming this, so definitely be wary of when you are handling this. Don't apply too much pressure, and definitely be cautious of what you are holding on to. And these do definitely make the transformation slightly more difficult, especially these pieces, as these pieces don't compress all the way in like these ones do, so you do have to be cautious that you're not putting too much pressure on these nor popping them off. And if you are looking for just a more simpler transformation where you don't have to worry about excess pieces, I would definitely recommend popping these off for the duration of the transformation. But you can see there are really and truly no gaps on this. There may be some slight gappage here, but I do still think that it keeps the overall sphere look, and I just think it looks super cool. You can see all the paintwork is done incredibly crisp, and overall I just think that they've done such a good job on this release. I honestly don't believe that the HasLab version is going to beat this, in my opinion, especially when we get into robot mode. This figure really is masterpiece grade. For a size comparison within planet mode, you can see that with the display base, he does tower over your regular Voyager class figure. So here we have the Earthrise Optimus Prime, and obviously he isn't to scale, as the real life Unicron would have to be absolutely huge. It'd have to be around 100 feet tall, so you're never going to get an actual in-scale Unicron, but you can see that the presence that it has definitely is amazing. It's a massive piece and really does evoke the look that the Chaos Springer had in the G1 movie. Now, of course, a figure that looks this good in both his planet mode and his robot mode, I may add, is obviously going to have a very complex transformation. And this is definitely a figure that I had to repeat the transformation for multiple times in order to really gather an understanding of how certain panels are supposed to go. If you miss a step or if you misplace an item earlier on in the transformation, it does make the later steps incredibly difficult to actually achieve. So I would highly recommend that you take your time with the transformation. The first time I transformed this, it took me about an hour to get everything in the proper configuration. So definitely really read through the instructions. They are incredibly detailed, and I've got to say, for a third-party figure, the instructions were really well done. Definitely the most thorough instruction manual that I've encountered with during my collecting of third-party figures. So to begin the transformation, I will be going through step by step of how you can actually get him from planet mode into robot mode, and taking my time so that you can truly see how everything is supposed to go. For the first step, if you do have the Planetary Rings already installed, I would highly recommend removing them before you begin doing any part of the transformation, just as the transformation is not possible without these being removed. So I recommend popping this section out of the top and then coming to the under section here and popping this one out as well. And then it's just a matter of really and truly wriggling. If I can just put this back on the display base, as the display base does greatly help you when you are transforming this figure. I would recommend just prying this section out. And then once one is untabbed, the other one is very easy. So you just want to kind of pull all of this away from the body. So just pull all of this. And then with that done, we can come to this final one and just wriggle it out, and you can see parts already popping off. And that is how the Planetary Ring does detach. It is one of the more fiddly steps, as you really do have to very gently manipulate it in order to actually get it uninstalled. I do wish that perhaps there was an easier method to actually detach it, but as stated, if you do the transformation multiple times, you'll definitely get the gist and the hang of actually how to do it. The next step I would highly recommend doing, which is something the instructions don't state due to they never actually mention these towers, is collapsing all of these pieces in. You definitely want to do this, as believe me, you are going to stick them into you throughout this review either way. So definitely compress those in, just to reduce your chances of actually impaling yourself with one of these. These ones only really flatten out, they don't compress any further than that. So these are definitely the ones to watch out for in my opinion. And then just repeat the same process here for the opposite side. So just collapse all of these down until we have something along the lines of this. Now what I would recommend doing is taking the included screwdriver that you do actually get with this figure in order to install the screw covers with, which I'll showcase once we get into robot mode. But this is a really handy tool to actually pop open some of the latches that would be really difficult to actually get undone if you didn't have a tool like this. So I use this just to detach these latches here. And you can see that it is very stiff and that they are pegged in there incredibly securely. So just untab those like so, And then repeat the same process on this side and just collapse these in until they are fully recessed. Throughout this review, I will just be showcasing you how to do one side, as this figure is very symmetrical. So both of the legs and both of the arms have the exact same transformation, and due to it being an incredibly lengthy process, I think that it'd be more effective if I showcase you how to do it on one of the legs, and then you can repeat the same process for the opposite leg. Otherwise, the review is just going to drag on for way too long. Once that's done, we can take this section and just compress this inwards, and then repeat the same process here for this opposite side. So just detach that and compress that in. We can then bring this around until we have something like this. And now actually getting down to the main transformation for this, I'm actually going to remove Unicron from the display base and bring in a softed padded mat, just as this figure has so many spikes on it that you really don't want to risk breaking them upon accidentally applying too much pressure. So I would highly recommend that if you are transforming this on a hard surface or a table, just put a cushion underneath it or some sort of padded material, just to really prevent those spikes from taking the brunt of the weight of the figure. Now you're going to want to turn under to the underside and just detach these latches here as well. These are very easy to actually detach, so just pull those sections out. It just helps you from straining any of these pieces later on during the transformation. Lift this up now, and you just want to get the screwdriver in there and pop this whole section off, and then we can begin to detach all of this. So just pop all this section off, and then under here you're going to want to remove this section where this post is. It does in fact tab into this, so just push that forward and then pull it outwards. And then with that done, you're going to want to turn your attention to the top, and your objective is to just detach these panels and pull all of this section out. Now this whole panel here is one of Unicron's arms, so what you'll do here is come to this section and just pull out the fist and then bring down this piece. Take this and just lift this section up for now. Take this here and rotate this around, and then we can just set that off to the side for now. Take this piece, rotate this whole section around, take these panels here and rotate these around. Now these are also the panels that you can exchange for blue pieces, so all of these, they do just pop off. They are on mushroom pegs, so you can see you can just simply remove those and peg on the blue pieces if you wish. There is a slot under there that this tab here will tab into, so just align that up and then snap that into place. And then now you can see two posts here that will peg into these two tabs. So just snap those into place and repeat the same process here for the opposite arm. Just give that a nice firm push. We can then bring the wrist around and the thumb out so that you can see how everything is going to be displayed. And now with this section, we can collapse these panels in upon themselves. And with this piece, you can see in here, there are two slots here and here that will peg into these two tabs. So you just want to align those up, and then you can see this post here that this tab will peg into, snap that into place, and then repeat the same process. And then with this at the top, you just want to compress this down, and that is one arm of Unicron fully transformed up. So I'll repeat the same process on the other side, and then we'll begin to get into the other parts of the transformation. So now with both arms of the Chaos Bringer now fully transformed, we're going to turn our attention to the underside, and really it's just a matter of removing all of these panels, just attaching them so that we can begin process on the leg section, which is the more involved piece of the transformation, definitely the most involved section in my opinion. Just pop that panel off. We can indeed fold some of these up now, just to avoid some clearance issues later on. So you can see that these just fold in. These pieces here fold in at the top, so this section, and then they just compress, and you can repeat the exact same process here. So just fold these all in, and these become the hip skirts for Unicron in robot mode. And then we can come to this section and just detach this whole piece, detach this piece, and then detach all of this. And then we can come now to the inner torso workings, and this is actually tabbed into the leg, so you're going to want to remove this out of the way. There really isn't a lot of clearance, so definitely be sure to make sure that you have untabbed that, otherwise you will definitely cause some issues within transformation. So just untab that, and then under here I would recommend pulling this piece out and then pulling this piece out, and then this tab will come down and snap into place, and then open this leg up, and you're going to want to rotate this in And you can see 2 tabs here and here that will indeed tab, if I can show you, into this tab here. So just align this up and snap that into place, and then these 2 ports will tab into these 2 tabs here. So just snap those in. And now is the difficult part of the transformation, actually getting the legs separated from the torso, as believe me, it does tab in there incredibly securely. So my recommendation to you would be to angle these pieces back and try your best to pop this whole piece out. So just pop this out and then fold this whole section back. And then in here, you may or may not be able to see, but there is a white clip that actually clips onto this. You're just going to want to grab onto this and pull it away from the body. It can be very difficult to do. These are the most secure tabs on the whole figure. Now, I did actually have to go off camera to do that, as the tabs are held in so securely that you honestly feel as if though you're going to break the figure, and you have to use an enormous amount of force to actually detach those. So to show you, these are the clips here that will plug into these tabs. Now, this really is the only issue that I have with the transformation of this figure, is that the tabs on here are just held in way too securely. You really do feel as if though you're going to break the figure, and quite honestly, you truly do believe you are going to break it, the amount of force that you do have to use to detach those. So definitely, I really wish that they could have been a lot more smoother. I will probably go in and actually file these pieces down, just as the tabbing mechanism really doesn't have to be that secure. But once that is done, what we can do is just bring the leg down on its ratchet joint. So bring that section down, and now extend all of this all the way out. And just showing you here, you can see this slot that once you untab these pieces and rotate these around, you can see very durable clear pieces of plastic, which I do not know how they will hold up over time. They do feel incredibly robust, so I don't have any problems with these at the moment, and don't really think that they will break, but they are the vital mechanism that actually locks the leg from sliding down. So if they do break, it's definitely going to be incredibly difficult to stand this figure up. So I would have perhaps liked it, just for a bit of reassurance, if they could have made these solid plastic, or even a die cast like they have done with some of the joints. But what you'll do here is just bring these pieces down, and they will fill out half of that, and then you just bring this other one down and snap those in firmly into place, and they do secure really, really nicely. We can then come to this panel here, and then you just want to rotate this section around and then bring this up on this hinge joint, swivel this around just to make sure it's in the proper orientation, and then just snap that into place. And repeat the same process here for this side. So just bring this section down. Like I said, the majority of this figure is very symmetrical, and you can see a tab there that will plug into this slot. Snap that into place. Now we can rotate to the actual foot of Unicron itself, and then here you just want to detach this, and then detach this section, and then flip this and align this tab sections. You can see a tab here, and fill out this gap. So bring that down, and you can see half of it is still left to be filled, and then that's when you bring in this section and just fill that up, and that is the heel spur of Unicron. These sections here are made out of a really heavy duty die cast material, which definitely gives this figure some really nice weight, and as they are towards the bottom of the figure, it makes stabilizing him in robot mode really easy. So super cool, and I'm so glad they did add these sections. We can then bring out the toes of Unicron. So bring out one layer, bring out the second layer, and then finally bring up the toe of Unicron. And then now it's just a matter of ratcheting all of this around and down. The ratchet joints are incredibly durable on this figure. And then take this ratchet, rotate that around, rotate this around, and that is one whole complete leg of Unicron. So what I'll do now is I'll get the other leg transformed up, and we'll begin working on the upper torso. Once both of the legs are fully transformed, you're going to want to collapse these crutch plates in, and then what you'll do here is come to these sections. You are going to have to utilize the double hinge for this, so just pull those out And then repeat the same process here for this side. So just slide this section outwards and then just leave these sections down like so. Now, once the transformation for the legs is complete, the rest of the transformation, surprisingly, is actually quite enjoyable. It's really just those two tabs in the legs that really stop this figure from having a rather fluent transformation. And they are really the only gripes that I do have with this. So once that's complete, we can turn our attention to these sections and just bring those in and then flip around to this side and repeat the process here as well. What we can now do is take this and rotate this all the way around and just collapse those sections down, and then that will then allow us to bring up these crotch plates and tab those into place. So snap those in, and you can see that these pieces do tend to fall out quite often, which can be quite frustrating. However, a small dab of glue, I do imagine, will probably really sort that out. And then once that's done, we can then turn our attention to the top and just bring these pieces away if they haven't done so already. And then what you do here is rotate this all the way around and then turn to this side and just compress this. So take this here, and 9 times out of 10, this piece here will pop off if you do have the head installed. So I would recommend to actually take this off now and remove Unicron's head. It can be very easily reinserted when we get into robot mode. And that is one way you can actually detach the neck brace if you don't like it on. So you can see that it is just held in via this small port. And in order to reinsert it, it's very easy to do. You just tab that section in, and then that is the neck brace back in and installed. Now what we do is take this section and just compress this downwards. And then here, you are going to want to bring the horn around, pull this section out, and then just feed the tip of it through one of the gaps and compress it into the main torso. And flipping that around and showing off a detail which I just missed to show you, here we have some really nice detailing of the screens that we see in the movie, and I think that's so cool as it gives Unicron some interior detailing, which is really nice. And you can even see on these panels there is also some really nice interior detailing, and all of this has been painted up as well, which is super cool. And so now we repeat the same process. So bring this section down, and then just tuck in the horn and collapse all this in, and then bring this body around by ratcheting it all the way around. Just ensure everything stays tabbed in, and then these pieces you can see tabs and slots here. You'll just want to snap into place nice and firmly, and then flip around to the back and repeat the same process. And that is essentially the entire body of our Studio Cell Chaos Bringer fully transformed up. Now, if this figure didn't have the head and the planetary rings, this is really and truly all you would be left with. However, of course, as I bought this direct from Show Z, we do of course get both the head and the planetary rings. So to show you that, you're going to want to detach this section here, make sure all of those are folded in. You're going to want to lift these up for now, and then pull this section around. And once that's around, then you can collapse these downwards. And repeat the same process here for this side. So just bring this all the way around, collapse those downwards, bring Unicron's head and fold out the horns and just snap that firmly into place. And now turning to the rings of Unicron, here what you're going to do is just simply detach these sections, and then they will just come apart very easily. And repeat the same process here for this side. So just detach those. They do separate really easily and very nicely, and then we can just extend these pieces upwards, and then this section here will come down, and then you can just fold these down, and then the ratchet joint is what pegs into the shoulder of Unicron. And just to show you this on the opposite side, just untab all that and elongate this section and elongate this section, and then you can see this huge port here that we will simply just take our planetary rings into and peg those into place. And of course, repeat the exact same process on the opposite side. Fold out these small spikes on the top of the towers if you wish to have Unicron having a rather spiky looking robot mode, which I do believe is G1 accurate. And then with these pieces, it's really up to your own interpretation. You can have them extended that way, or you can have them collapsed downwards. I actually quite like them collapsed downwards. I think that looks quite cool. And then of course, repeat the same process here for the opposite side, and then fold out all of the spikes on the outer section, as well as the inner section on arm, and repeat the same process also on the opposite side. And then here we have the Studio Cell Unicron fully transformed up into his amazing looking robot mode. Now, as you saw within Planet mode, he looked phenomenal there. The transformation is definitely on the more complex side, which I greatly think is warranted when you see how amazing he also looks in his robot mode. This figure is basically kibble free in his robot mode, which is something that the HasLab Unicron is definitely going to have a problem with, as it looks as if though the entire planet actually just stores on the HasLab Unicron's back and legs. This one is half the price point and in my opinion is double the quality. This really does look amazing. Now, as I stated, I don't have the HasLab one in person yet nor in hand. I'm merely going off of some of the images that I've seen, but this one by far looks as if though it is the best representation of Unicron that we have got so far. And if you missed out on that HasLab pre-order, then this one is definitely a perfect substitute. You can see how streamlined he is. If I just bring him and rotate him to the side, you can see that there is no kibble on Unicron's back, nor any on the back of his legs. There are merely just a few panels which I think really fill out the legs really nicely and definitely make this figure look super proportionate. A truly awesome figure, so let's get in to take a look at some of the closer details. Taking a look at Unicron's head sculpt, there is no denying that this is the Chaos Bringer. This looks absolutely fantastic, and something which they've done that I think is even more awesome is the way that they've actually done the eyes. Now, this figure does have an LED function, as you saw in Planet mode, but that LED function can also be utilized within his robot mode. And of course, if you wish to just display this figure on your shelf, figures that tend to have LED eyes tend to look rather dead when the LED function isn't turned on, but nope, this version here I think they've done an amazing job. You can see the reflectiveness actually in the eyes. It's almost as if though they're mirrored, so he looks alive at all times. Now, pushing a simple button on the back does make his eyes light up an incredibly vibrant green, which looks really cool. You may not be able to get the full effect of it due to my lighting, so if I just turn one of the lights off, you may be able to get a slightly better look at that, but you can see that even with the very bright lights, this figure's eyes are glowing and he looks so cool. Another really nice feature of this figure is that he also has an articulated mouth, so you can see you can open the mouth up and we've got some super cool teeth, very nicely sculpted, very menacing in design, and I just think the overall head sculpt looks fantastic. The only criticism that I do have with him is that I do think the neck brace is slightly too big. However, that's a very minor criticism, and as you saw during the transformation, that neck brace can easily be removed if it bugs you that much, which in my opinion, it doesn't really. It just is the only thing that looks ever so slightly disproportionate. If we turn our attention to the shoulders, if you do decide to have the spikes actually sticking up, it just gives you the sense of how big this figure truly should be. These are just towers on a planet or landscape, and you can see that Unicron is absolutely huge, truly a foe not to be messed with by the Autobots nor the Decepticons. And you can see the sculpting and detailing there for the shoulders, and I love how the spikes look with this huge planetary ring folded up on the edge. Really awesome there. And then you can also see here the level of detail that they've put into this with all the panel lining. These sections here are actually painted in silver and then have a clear piece of plastic over the top. And you can see all of the piston detailing and the wiring in there. And these arm joints here are actually made out of solid die cast, which is amazing. It doesn't make me worry about breaking the joints whatsoever. And if you wish to have a more cleaner look for Unicron, then these arm joints can definitely be compressed. However, I wouldn't recommend leaving them compressed if you wish to articulate him, as you're not really going to get that much range of motion out of him. But you can definitely see there that you can compress the arm joints if you wish to have a cleaner looking look for Unicron. We also have the red abdomen section, which I think is super nice, and it is also able to be opened, which is super cool as well. It's not due to transformation, this is merely just a fun gimmick that they did put into this figure. And as we turn our attention down to the crutch and the skirt of the figure, you can see that I think that the panel detailing on this is also really nice, and all of the paint apps here, especially here for the yellow, and the gunmetal came out super clean. And then as you saw earlier on, there is no kibble whatsoever on these legs. I think that these legs compress so nicely. Truly an amazing job. No kibble on the thighs and literally no kibble on the back of these as well. All really nicely done. And we've got some amazing sculpting and detailing and red transparent plastic there. And then turning down to the lower part of Unicron, here we have Unicron's feet. And I think even the feet have been amazingly recreated here. You've got all of the various different panels and all of the sculpting and detailing. I absolutely love, as I stated during the transformation, how these pieces actually have die cast in them as well, so that it really does weigh the figure down towards the bottom, which makes posing him incredibly easily to do. And you can see all the sculpt work here. Just an amazing Unicron figure. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better figure. I really wish I'd held out on purchasing that HasLab version, as this is definitely going to be my definitive Unicron. Now, in terms of articulation, not only does he look amazing in both planet mode and robot mode, but his articulation for a transformable figure is just off the charts. This is one of the most articulated third-party figures I have ever encountered. You can see here for the head that it is on a ball joint, so it can look down, up, and nod side to side, as well as look left to right. It could even go to a further degree of motion. However, due to the way that this is all sculpted, it does restrict that motion. But when you pop the head off, that ball joint is just so versatile. We also do get the articulated mouth, allowing for the jaw to open and close, which is super cool. You saw here that if you extend these joints, you can elongate those. You get a full 360 degree ratcheted joint there for where the upper section of the shoulder is. We do also get a soft ratchet here for the upper bicep, a double jointed elbow, which is completely ratcheted, which is amazing. And you can see the phenomenal range of motion that you do indeed get out of that. Full 360 degree ratcheted rotation here at the wrist, and all of the fingers do have 3 points of articulation. So the knuckles, everything is just fully articulated on this figure. You can have them fully extended. Just an amazing range of motion on this release. For the torso area, due to the transformation, it is completely full of rotation joints. So we get a rotation joint here, which is mainly used for transformation, but you can definitely use it here for robot mode. We do get a full 360 degree rotation at the waist, and something which is entirely just designed for robot mode. We also do get an ab crunch, which you can crunch the forward backwards and crunch him backwards. So that is so cool. It fully extends, so you can have him crunched all the way forwards, or have him crunching all the way backwards. An amazing joint there, really nice attention to detail. These sections here can hinge out of the way, as so can the side flaps as well. They are very stiff, but they can all move out of the way. And then as we turn our attention down to the legs, ratcheted joints all the way forwards that far. They can also go all the way back as well to a great degree. We can of course do the splits, however that is mainly due to transformation. We do also get a rotation joint here at the thigh, as well as a rotation joint here at the lower leg. And he also has a really nice ratcheted knee joint. And if you utilize the transformation joint, it's almost a double range of motion, which is really nice. However, the ratchet section on this doesn't hold up as securely as perhaps I would have liked it to have been, but seeing as this is for a completely separate job, I can completely understand that. And then finally, turning down to Unicron's feet, these two are also fully articulated. You can extend this joint in here, which you can see, and then you can pivot the foot side to side, as well as forwards and backwards utilizing the toes. No ratchet joint forwards and backwards, which is unfortunate, but quite honestly, I don't have any issues with the articulation whatsoever. I think that it's a phenomenal piece. Turning to quite a nice touch and a really nice added addition to this figure is that we also do get included with this figure some screw coverings. So you can see that these ones here I did plug in myself. Some of them tab in a lot better than some of the others, which is unfortunate. However, I do imagine if you apply a lot more force, you could probably force them in there. I was just worried about marking them up as I did with this one ever so slightly. You can see there is some white marks on that, so I didn't want to push this one in too firmly, but I really do like this. I'm not sure why Studio Cell didn't do this themselves, but a really nice inclusion nonetheless, and definitely gives you that masterpiece feel. And then finally, for a very quick size comparison, you can just see how huge Unicron is, as he doesn't even fit in the full frame of my camera. But if we bring it all the way down, you can see there is the Earthrise Voyager Optimus Prime, and this figure is just absolutely massive, truly a masterpiece in design. It looks amazing and is definitely going to look amazing next to your masterpiece collection. Of course, it isn't to scale, as a real life Unicron would have to be 100 to 200 feet tall, even bigger I would imagine. So this figure truly is amazing, just a fantastic figure, truly mind-blowing, looks incredible in his robot mode, and I think that he just has a fantastic presence. So that was my review on the 01 Studio Cell Unicron, also known as the Zeta Toy 02 Core Star Lord of Chaos. If you haven't guessed already from this review, I'm absolutely mind blown by this latest release. This is an amazing third-party figure, and I truly believe that it's going to give the upcoming HasLab project a run for its money. Now, this is definitely, I believe, the better out of the two figures. Of course, as I've stated, I don't have the HasLab one to hand, but just judging by images, the way this one cleans up, the way it looks in robot mode as well as in planet mode, this is by far the superior version. And if you are into your masterpiece figures, then this is probably the closest you're ever going to get to a masterpiece Unicron. I think planet mode looks amazing, transformation very complex, very involved, but there is a fluidity to it, other than the fact that those joints that connect the legs are incredibly stiff and really do require a lot of force to actually pull them apart. But setting that apart, I think the transformation is super nice, and just look at him in robot mode. He looks amazing. The LED function is a super nice touch. This figure just feels as if though it's had so much care and attention put into it that the designers should really be proud of themselves. I'm so glad that this figure actually made it to a release, as for quite some time it was unknown whether or not we would even get this figure, but in my opinion I'm so happy that it was released and I cannot highly recommend it enough. So with all that being said, if you are in the market for picking this figure up, he is in stock right now over at ShowZ's store, so for that I will leave a link down in the description box below. And of course, as I've also said, you do get the Planetary Rings as well as the head sculpt included if you do purchase through ShowZ, so definitely recommend that. Check out the links down in the description box below, and be sure to also let me know what you thought of this review. I do apologise if certain aspects of this review did seem rather clumsy. This figure is just so big that I really don't have the room to facilitate him in terms of a review. I did try my best, so be sure to let me know what you thought of the review, and also be sure to let me know what you think of the figure down in the comment section below, and whether or not you'll be adding him to your collection. I really hope that you enjoyed my review, and if you have any questions regarding this figure, do not hesitate to let me know down below. Thanks for watching.